Good evening, everybody. Welcome to The Burn with Mitch on 12 Ounce Sports Network. I am your host, Mitch Bernstein, on what is a gorgeous afternoon day we had in Wilmington, North Carolina. Um, Let me tell you about our show, and then I got to get to our one half of our guests because he just said, I wish he would listen to me, Bob. I wish he would look at his notes. Dave is coming on at 6:40. He just messaged me. What the heck is he doing? He said, what time am I coming on? Let me tell you about the show real quick. Well, let me just, before I tell you about the show, let me tell you what's going on in that I'm excited about in sports. Baseball has started. We've got a full week. Already got some injuries, which we knew were going to happen. Taijuan Walker, the Mets. Um, uh, Others around the league due to shortened spring training. So we've already got that going for all of us baseball fans. We've already had a bench clearing brawl. How about that? That was exciting. Phillies had a great comeback win last night. I was sitting on my couch getting pissed off and thinking, why can't these guys hit this pitcher? And then next thing you know, come the eighth inning, they score 5, and I'm a happy camper. So that was good. If you watch the Masters, Scotty Scheffler, amazing run he's on. He won the Masters, and I think he's won 4 out of his last 6 tournaments. It's crazy. And one note for all of you out there: have you gotten your taxes done yet? I'm just here to help. It's April 12th, and you got a couple more days. I think it's the 18th this year because the 15th is on a Friday. And it's Easter weekend and stuff. So, 18th, you got a few more days to get your taxes in. Just a helpful note from your friend here at 12 on Sports, Mitch Bernstein, The Burn with Mitch. All right, the show tonight. Let me get to that real quick. I don't know how I did this, but I mixed fishing and baseball books. It's okay. It's my show. I guess I can do whatever the heck I want. So coming up at 6:40, I am excited to have 2 captains of 2 different boats from Wicked Tuna. Probably up there as one of my favorite, if not my favorite reality show right now. But I've watched every season. It's been fun. I'm going to ask these 2 guys some questions about. I'm going to talk about how they survived, and we watched them survive the pandemic. And then go on the other side. Sometimes there's drama on the show. I haven't seen much drama. I wonder why. I'm going to talk to those guys about it. We've got Captain Bob Cook, and we have Captain Dave Marciano coming on at 6:40. At 7:05, Justin McGuire from the Baseball Book Pod. He runs Baseball by the Book, and you can find that at Baseball Book Pod on Twitter. Going to talk about 2 books. It is baseball season. Jackie Robinson Day is coming up on Friday for those teams who are home. And I know the Phillies, I just looked at their schedule. Next week when they're home, they are celebrating Jackie Robinson Day. So he's got a book that we're going to talk about called Baseball's Great Experiment about Jackie Robinson. And then we're going to talk about the glory of their times. And that covers the time between 1900 and 1920. And we're going to talk about some of those players who we may or may not have heard of, and what was it like to play baseball in those times, and what were their experiences. So we'll talk to Justin about that. And then at 7:30, Bill Perch, baseball historian and researcher with SABR, the Society for American Baseball Research, is going to have. He's going to be on along with Bill Nolan, who is the editor of this new book. And Rory Costello, a contributor of the new book that is coming out by SABR, a digital book called Dominicans in Baseball. So a very interesting and diverse show, no pun intended, for this evening. And I'm looking forward to having all of these guests on. But let me find out. My friend Dave Marciano said what time. It was on Twitter. I'm going to bring Bob on in just a second. Where is my Twitter feed? And we're going to tell Dave to come on. Okay, come on now. That would be fun. We have more time to talk. All right. So now I don't only just get one captain of the Wicked Tuna. I got two, and I'm bringing the first one out. First one on now, Captain Bob Cook. Hello, Bob.
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm down here in Wilmington, North Carolina, baby. It's awesome.
Well, I am up here in Essex, Massachusetts. It's equally as awesome.
I know you love you. You're there for a reason, right? You're there.
That's right. Hey, happy birthday, by the way, again.
Hey, I appreciate that. That was very nice of you to do. It was such a great surprise. My daughter, man, I got to tell you, she is something else.
Yeah, that was nice of her.
It was, wasn't it? I had sitting there. I had no idea what she was doing, Bob. She was on the computer. She was playing with it the entire time. And I was like, what is she? I had no idea what was going on. I didn't think anything of it. And she had combined all of these videos from some of the guests, including yourself. And I'm sitting there like this. And I got chills and I got tears in my eyes. It was just awesome. So thank you.
I bet.
It was great. I think you know this guy coming on. No, there he is.
Where's that guy?
Hey, what's going on?
Dave,
What's
Dave,
up?
what are you doing in the car?
What?
Are you in the car?
Made it home. I never made it home. Trying to get these boats in the water.
I got you. Well, thanks,
Our
Dave.
plan is to launch tomorrow, so.
Oh my God, a lot to do.
You know, yeah, that's it. Bob knows on that day before you think you got everything done, and then when it's the day before you launch, you realize all the things you forgot.
Oh,
and I got it times two. And I got it times two because, of course, to make it really difficult for social media, we like to launch both boats on the same day, so we can have some fun with it on the social media aspect.
Absolutely, and you guys are great with that. I appreciate it so much. Let me get into this. I want to bring up, last year. I haven't talked to you guys in a little bit. And we watched this during the pandemic, and the shock. We were shocked at home. Oh well, I can give you $6 a pound. Holy crap! What the hell? And then it hit us. So my first question for both of you guys, were you aware of these prices going in?
I'll let you go first, Davey.
Okay. Well, yeah, look, we knew it was going to be a tough sell. For a while, we didn't even know if we were going to have a season. There was talk early on, whether the buyers would even be able to sell any fish at all. So when it came down to it, we knew the prices were soft, at least speaking for myself. But looking at the rest of the world, and, we knew we were going to take a cut and pay. But the way the things went in the world, right, if you step back for a moment and look, in one sense, we're very fortunate. We didn't have to stop work altogether. So, and it's always been the case as a commercial fisherman, the price is the price, right? We always wish we could get more.
Right.
When we get $5, we wish we could get 10. When we get $10, we wish we could get 20. That's the nature of the beast, being a fisherman. But in the big sense, if I was able to step back and look and say, because again, as a commercial fisherman, whether it's tuna or any other species, some days, half a day's pay is better than no pay at all. Because we spend a lot of days on the boat, and if the nets aren't full or if the price isn't good, you can work an 80-hour work week on a commercial boat like mine, 80 or 100 hours, and not get any check at all. Right. Not get enough fish to cover expenses. That's been my lifestyle for 30 years. So for me, it was easy to just keep it in perspective and be thankful at least we have something coming in. Right. And then, obviously, let's not lie, right? Because we participate in the show, that's a great opportunity, and that's on top of, right? Mm-hmm. So we're very fortunate. I really felt for the guys there's plenty of guys out here who don't have the same opportunity I have. Right. So, again, in the big picture, it was easy for me to be thankful for anything.
Right. Bob?
Yeah, and I think for my crew, we knew going in that it was going to be difficult, and I had my buyer on speed dial. I had PJ on speed dial saying, "What's going to happen here?" And to be quite honest, the network was calling quite a bit, saying, "What's your gut? What do you think's going to happen here?" And I had to kind of put that aside, put the filming aside, and say, "How do I make a living this summer?" So here I am. I've also got my charters on speed dial, and saying, if we don't film, I got to get you guys to come. Or would you come? I mean, I usually block off 2 months for filming. So in those 2 months, I said, guys, will you be interested in doing charters, even though we're in this situation in the world? And they all said yes. So I got lucky there. But then it turned out we were able to film. We were able to make a little bit of money on the fish. And the buyers also all got together and they said, let's have some close days here. It's not by law or anything like that, but let's do the right thing. Let's spread it out. And they did us a tremendous service by doing that as well. So we were able to, there was really no demand. So what they did is they gauged it and we put just enough supply out there for the demand. And yeah, we didn't make $1 million, but we made a paycheck at the end of the day. So we got lucky where a whole lot of other people did not. So,
yeah. It's like Dave mentioned, you had to put it in perspective. Whole new situation in the world for all of us.
That's right.
You do what you can. Lucky you had a job. I mean, listen, at my job, I'm quite a faculty member at the school I worked at. I didn't think I was going to have a job because I was working with kids. Kids weren't in school. So I was lucky enough that the kitchen manager said, we need Mitch. We need Mitch in the kitchen to help us. He can do whatever he can. Because they got rid of a few people in the kitchen. And I was yeah. And my wife's still working. We moved, so she was working, obviously, from home. And that was great. But, it was what a crazy system.
We all had to pivot, right? We had to pivot. Say, what's going to work here? What's not? I think we all kind of appreciate a lot of times it makes you gain perspective on what works through a pandemic. What can you do to make money through a pandemic? And you end up just figuring ways to do it. And it's going to happen again. We all know that. So we all kind of have a plan in place, hopefully, for when it does.
Okay. I hope. I hope.
I hope I'm wrong.
It ain't going to happen again. People aren't that gullible.
All right. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
All right, so this season, so I'm going to go and talk about the last few seasons, and then we'll get to this season. You went through the pandemic. You went through Duffy's passing. Okay. Paul lost his dad. TJ, we just found out, obviously, just lost the dog. There used to be Tyler. I tweeted out, and Marissa responded with a like on the tweet that Tyler seems to have grown up a lot. Watching him go from whatever it was, season 1 when he was a kid, now he's an adult, right? He's changed a bit too in terms of not being crass, not being that young kid. So my question is, where the hell's the drama coming from? Because this season, it seems what happened. It looks like what happened is we've gone through all these hard times.
Dave's chomping at the bit. Look at him. Where's the drama, Dave?
Right. I'm biting my tongue here, Bob. I'm biting my tongue.
Okay, so my point is,
if
he's got the bit right here. He's like a horse. He's chomping at it.
I'm going to need stitches in my tongue after this interview.
Hold on, Dave. Hold on 1 second. So it just seemed like everybody was like, man, we've gone through this. And you're coming together as a group. So Dave, at one point, I believe it was last year, said, I'm going on my own. Everybody got pissed off. And initially he said, I don't care. Then he realized, well, maybe I should care. But there used to be fun drama. There used to be fun drama with Tyler. And he was the one that
editing amazing?
Yeah.
So Dave, where's the drama?
If I could start, Dave, I want to say one thing.
Go ahead.
And that's regarding Tyler. Okay, he has grown up, and here's one thing I'll always say about Tyler: he's a very, very hard worker out there.
Good.
There's a lot you guys don't see as well. He's still got that tremendous chip on his shoulder, but that also helps. You know, that chip on your shoulder, that drive to be number one. We all have it, and some people just wear it differently than others. But yeah, he's grown up a little bit. But Davey, your tongue is bleeding there from biting too hard.
Dave.
So go
Out
on,
with it, Dave.
Well, no, look, it's real simple for me. You know, when I disappeared on my own, that's a reflection of real life. All right. Now, I'm not going to get into throwing other guys under the bus, right? But if I don't work with you, it's for a simple reason. You know, personally, we don't need to be working together. And again, that's as diplomatically as I could say it. You know, the truth is, I really don't like most of those other guys, with the current participant being one of the exceptions to the rule. And that's just, look, maybe I'm the problem. I'll admit that. I own my half of it. But, you know, if you don't, I've got no problem cutting toxic people out of my life, right? Because they just drag you down.
Right.
And it's very negative influence on you. And remember, you know, toxic people are very clever, very conniving, and you can even see it. When's the last time you saw me have a meltdown?
Yeah, you know, Dave, that right.
Toxicity fucking whoops. I mean,
It's all right.
that affects people in real life. Okay, so I don't want to go into details, but if I don't work with you, in my opinion, it's for a good reason. And I'll be the first to say, you know, maybe they don't like me either. So that's just fine with me. And I'm just going to stay clear. You know, and when we did that, you guys, and again, remember, the show is a minuscule version of what actually is going on. Right? Because it's a 1 hour TV show, and it's not a you know, it's not a docudrama. You know what I mean? They're not gonna. So you're getting a highly condensed version of what really happened in real life, right?
Yep.
And then, but you know, you've seen the truth. What like Bob came down like an adult and called me out on it, and we worked it out like grown-ups. So in my book, I can work with a guy like that. Now, you know, Will and Bob and I still have disagreements in the future. I'm sure we probably will. We're fishermen. After all, we both do get competitive. Everybody gets competitive. Fishermen, it's the nature of the beast, right? But I'll just continue to do what I feel is best for me and the kids. And that's always been my focus. And, you know, if I can do that and stay happy and positive in my real life, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, the drama part of it, you know, whether it be myself or with Dave, or it's going to happen. So stay tuned. That's all I can say. Whether it happens on my vessel or Dave's vessel,
Right.
We'll see.
Oh yeah, there is some stuff in there.
We'll see. But
see,
I will say
I didn't know because I wasn't there. I was as far away from those other guys as often as possible. But here's a little secret. I'm going to give you guys, we just contacted, you know, we just got up for season 12. So season 12 is going to happen next year.
Good.
And when I get done with season 12, nobody is ever going to complain that they don't see me again. The first thing you'll hear him complain, you'll hear him hit the ground and pray and going, thank God that boat ain't here. And I have a few individuals in mind. I'm going to make a believer out of them.
Mitch, all I ever say,
they don't see that boat.
They're going to pray. To Dave is, Dave, you be you, man. You be you. And the thing is, for me, I you know, for our crew, I don't have the history that these guys have. I've been fishing amongst this fleet for years and years and years, but I've only been on this show competing now for 3 full years, going into my 4th. They have a tremendous history, and with history comes bad blood.
Sure.
and it is totally what it is. So until a lot of these guys burn me, I'm okay with pretty much every single one of them.
Yeah.
But I will get burned.
All right.
I will get
Oh
burned.
yeah, I warned you, Bob.
I warned you too.
So, and I must mention Paul too. Now he's only got one guy working with him this year, but it's Mr. Controlling himself. I mean, holy shiitake mushrooms! I couldn't handle him. No, do it. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Relax. No, nothing could work. I don't know if I could work with Paul. I love his laugh. I wanted him to come on the show at some point because I want to make him laugh because I love that laugh. It's obnoxious. Yes, but yeah, both of you, and you're great. You're doing this for a living. I mean, you got to get paychecks, like you said. This is not fake. This is real stuff. So, Dave, Bob, you have to do right what's best for you in this situation. Where screw the other guys. I got to go I got to do what I got to do. What I think is right for me.
Right.
go to where the
Ultimately,
fish
and
are.
the other guys, I don't hold it against them doing the same thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to work together. And if ultimately, you don't get along with people that you have to work with, well, you just learn to, stay out of the same room.
Right.
And
And you
for
can
the most part, I'll go find a different room to do my thing. As long as I can get the job done. And there's times where we have to mingle in the same room and we can make it work or we can make it difficult.
Yes. Ooh, I like the way you spread that word out. We can make it difficult. I love that. That's a 5-syllable word.
Depends on my mood.
Hey, Dave, real
I hope
quick.
there's lots of coffee and lots of cigarettes on the boat and everything will be fine.
Dave, real quick. I've missed Angelica. What is she up to?
She is in New Mexico working in the movie production industry.
Oh, good.
She was never going to fish for a living like the boys.
Okay.
In real life, the boys run the hard merch and I run the Falcon. It's been that way since I bought the Falcon 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is all the money in Hollywood can't afford the Falcon as well. So we all pile on the merch.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's just how it is. So that's fine with me. But she was never going to do it for a living.
Right.
She's thriving now in the movie production industry. And as you saw, look, she stepped up when I needed her.
She did.
Plus the fact, look, and I won't lie, because of the opportunity with the TV deal, right? I flat out told her as her dad, I said, look, it's an opportunity for 8 weeks. I don't care if you hate it. I mean, she likes fishing. She was just never going to do it for work, right? But I said, just shut the F up and take the money. It's in the grand scheme, it's an opportunity that not many people have. Between what I pay her because I'm her dad and the opportunity from participation in the show, it was easy money for a kid her age.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. She put some money in the bank. She helped me out. The fans love her.
Yep.
I would love to see her come back. She's open to coming back if it ever works out in her real life schedule.
Right. Awesome. That's great. So we do miss her. She was a trooper all the time. I mean, gave her all, which was great. So it was fun to see that.
Yep.
All right, guys.
She was always smarter than the rest of us. That's why she went and got a real job.
Smart.
She's smarter than all of us.
So this season is really, really amazing in terms of how much people are catching, except for Paul. Unfortunately, I mean, some big ones early. I mean, really early, and a lot of holy crap! I'll give you 14. I think 14's been the lowest amount, or I think maybe. I mean, 16, 17, 19. It's been awesome. I don't know that that we get excited as fans to hear that number come out. The other thing I like what you're doing is, and we kind of knew this because my wife and I like to see that if we can get to see the tail cut, and I look at it and I see the fat in there, I'm going, that's going to be about 16. We always try and guess. It's always a fun thing to guess, and I always like trying to guess the size of the fish too.
Yeah,
not so good on that. But so what the show is doing, as you see, is they're showing us with the lines the fat, the lines of the
In the
fall,
majors and minors.
majors and
Yep.
minors. Yeah.
Yep.
And listen, I learned that now. I feel like I can actually do PJ's job or Scotty's job. Be kind of fun.
There you
Well,
go.
the one shift that I like with the show in the last couple of years, and I've
Mhm.
heard a lot of really good feedback, is the educational part. And
Yes.
the information that we put around pretty much any scene, they push that. And
Yeah.
I almost feel like daily I'm on a charter, because the questions, as Dave knows, they fire 1,000 questions at you daily. So I just make pretend I'm on a charter when I'm out commercial fishing, and when they ask those questions, because it's very good for content for the show, and people love to learn. So I really like that approach to the show. I think it's made it really pleasurable to watch.
Did you guys have input on
agree.
that? Or
Yeah, we said that people ask for that. There's
Okay.
no doubt. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always been, since I've been a part of the show, that's always been one of the most common, when people correspond with me, whether it's in person or, through email, through the website. That's always been a highlight going back to season 1, that people seem to love to learn. They're always thankful to learn anything, whether it's about what the whales are doing or
yes.
about what we're doing, anything they can learn. And I think, and this is just a guess now, this is just my opinion, but I think that's because of, the network that we're on. It's the National Geographic Channel. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
their fundamental base, let's face it, we all used to, well, at least, we had a subscription to National Geographic all the years I was growing up with it as a kid. And, I used to love to thumb through the magazine when the new issues came out, right?
Yeah.
Back before phones and everything else.
What pictures did you look at? Never mind.
Well,
Now, you don't have to answer that.
all right.
Well,
But but again,
thing, too-
I think it's our
Go ahead.
audience is predisposed to
Mhm.
learning.
Absolutely, Bob.
Yeah, and the one thing that we were very careful about, I know, again, I can't speak for everybody either, but is showing people the details of how we're rigging a bait. And
Yes.
oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn my back and I'm gonna put the hook in a certain way, or I'm gonna present it this way. I'm gonna put the weight on this way. Now it's like, because really, people can see it 1,000 times. It's applying it out there.
Yes.
That's the difficult.
I love that. I mean, lost you there, Bob. Bob, we lost your audio. Dave, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Does that mean Bob can't hear me? Should I talk bad about
You still
him
got me
now?
on there, buddy?
Oh, there we go. We got you
Oh.
back.
Ah.
Sorry, Dave. Say it again, Bob. We lost your audio for a second. We just missed your audio.
I have no sound here.
Oh, you can't hear me either? Uh-oh. What a blip. So Dave, with this season, it's tight. Fun race right now. People are catching, which is awesome. I love it. We love it. Let's go. But let's go back.
Bob?
Yeah, as a fisherman who tries to go catch some fish off the pier, it is fun to see what you guys and how you do it. It is. It's a learning experience. I would love to, and you guys are my bucket list to come out and be on that boat to see what you do. And you know what? To feel that 250-pound fish. Oh my God. I would love it. I get an 8-10-pound bass. I think I'm got something big, right? But that's got to feel so cool. And all the work that you guys do when you're on the back of the boat. You know what I also learned, and I think a lot of people do too? You guys are the boat. You're not anchored necessarily, right? When you got to catch up to that fish to get the line in sometimes, right?
That's the
Right,
first
no,
thing
you-
we do
we
is drop
all-
the anchor. Yeah.
Drop the anchor. Or you guys were drifting a lot down in Chatham, right, Bob?
We
In
were.
Some areas we drift, right? And now my system these days is a little different. I used to drop a ball like a lot of the guys do, but with the anchor winches I have on my boats, I just wind up hauling the anchor, which works good for me. That's all. So you see variations of the same technique, but the ultimate goal is we get clear so we can move the boats.
Right. Exactly. I mean, listen, the drama. There's never when lines are crossed and you're in the anchor. You know, that's the drama. The simple, easy drama to look at. Don't
That's
lose
the drama I like.
Don't lose the damn fish.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, boing. And we both, my wife and I,
Well, you've seen the word I use.
When you think about it, right? The base formula for the show is one of the oldest formulas for TV entertainment there is, right? It's the thrill of victory when we land one and the agony of defeat when we lose one. And everything else is a little bit of filler.
It is. Yeah. Right, Bob?
And I've never been beeped so much in my entire life as this year. It's unbelievable. I mean, the F-bomb is thrown around on my boat a lot.
And we love that too. Because it's real.
It's an emotion, you know. You just what are you gonna say? Darn it. You know, I mean,
I mean, I would get along great with you guys because every other word is an F-bomb with me. When I've lost fish, we went fishing last year, and then we're going again this year in the summer. My brother has a lake house. My brother-in-law has a lake house on Spoon Lake outside of Peoria. We all caught big fish last year. I mean, you're talking about 8 to 10 pound catfish, big bass, but I lost 4 big ones. Okay, 4. And the last one was the killer. You ready for this? No, everybody's at the pool. It's the last day there. I'm by myself on his dock, and it's with a bobber, right? We're bobber fishing with worm, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And it always happens. You at least expect it. You know, boom, there goes the bobber. Oh, it's a big one, right? And my brother-in-law's first words are, "Get the net." I had no one to say get the net to. I'm like, oh, crap, because this sucker was huge. I'm reeling in. I'm playing with him. He's fighting. He's finally coming in. And there was a guy next door. And I said, hey, do you have anybody over there that can help? I need someone to get the net. He brings his kid over. The kid runs over. I said, yeah, get the net. He gets the net. It's probably 3 feet from the dock. What does he do? He grabs the line.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. Oh.
I couldn't say, what the did you just do? I didn't know. Oh, look at this kid. This kid's 10. I'm just sitting there going, that was my shot. My last shot. Damn it.
Now,
did you throw him in the water?
What's funny is
Go ahead.
On our charters, you mentioned our charters. With the right groups, often in the morning, sometimes we will elect to have a word of the day.
Ooh.
And the goal is for everybody on the boat to use that word as often as possible. And I'll tell you, with the right group of guys, it can get pretty crazy. And those are charters that you'll never see clips of on social media.
Everything will be
banned for life.
Beep, 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 beep. All right, guys, real quick. So the name of the show is The Burn with Mitch. And I had not been doing this in the past, but I need your burns. Okay, what's bugging you? What burns you? Obviously, is this with fishing? Is it with people? What the heck is it? I got a couple of minutes. That's it.
I mean, for me, it's people. That's why I moved to Essex. And I mean, I'm kind of in another business too, in the pizza business, and the customers, they kind of kill me. But for right now, it's government.
Okay.
And people.
Right.
That's my.
Right.
That's what burns me.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Dave. What do you got?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm trying to think of a clever answer here, but I guess I would have to go with, the government. Obviously, as a fisherman, and I'm not talking current status, fishing and dealing with the federal government has been a challenge my entire career.
Okay.
The 30 years I've been doing it. Even now, when like us it's funny, our safety equipment, for 30 years, it's been one thing. For 10 years, it's been one thing. For 5 years, it's been one thing. And then now, just the other day, just yesterday, I'm getting my safety sticker. And, now one raft isn't enough. I have to buy two. These rafts are $4 or $5 grand a pop. And it gets out of control just to get, and it's different if you got a federally documented vessel, which is what the Falcon is, versus a state registered vessels. So for the same equipment, but because of its designation, it just, you scratch your head when you hear what this guy's telling me. Both boats do the same thing, but I have two different separate sets of requirements.
That's crazy.
Because of the nature of the registrations and the documentation.
Right.
It makes your head spin.
Yeah.
But that's all. Life is good. Life is short. Life's too short to be a miserable prick.
That's true.
Is that right,
You're
.com?
okay with it, though.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, listen. This has been great. Thank you so much. I love you guys both. I love the entire show. You guys are so easy to talk to. It's so much fun. On my bucket list, it's too bad that my daughter Kelsey couldn't come up to visit you. Bob, you were in Ireland because she was up in Massachusetts, Boston, about a month ago. But I think next summer I'm going to talk to my wife and see if we can come up and visit and see if we make contact. And my bucket list is to get on one of your boats, if not both.
There we go.
Thanks for that, and great talking to you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it, Dave. Terrific. Just terrific. Thank you so much.
And Bob, thanks for the help behind the scenes this week with the safety inspection. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, no problem, buddy. You got it. I got to talk to you about this.
All
right. See you guys. Thank you.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
All right. How much fun was that, Wicked Tuna fans? Just terrific. Thank them very much for being on here. Now we're going to switch. I mean, this is like not even a 180. It's like a 360 or a 720. We have some baseball book talk coming up. Welcome to the program, Mr. Justin McGuire. Hey, Justin.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Hey, thanks for coming on. It's terrific that I found you because as a baseball fan and doing this show, I have found so many baseball books to read. And it is just kind of an honor to be able to talk to you because this is what you do. This is your thing. And I just appreciate, thank you for taking the time to come on. And we both love baseball. And, I don't know that you can see behind me. I'll move out of the way a little bit, pull up my computer that bookcase right there.
Yeah.
That's all baseball books. Doesn't compare to yours, I don't think. I know. But
now I get a lot of mine for free, in all fairness.
Yeah, well, you're lucky. You're lucky about that. My wife is like, "Are you gonna buy another baseball book?" Hey, it's part of what I like to do. I'm almost fully retired, so I got plenty of time to read.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thanks for coming on. We're going to talk about two different books that involve baseball. One very pertinent to the week. Baseball's Great Experiment about Jackie Robinson. But let's talk about the glory of their times first. Now, if we can.
Yeah, well, just for a little background, I started doing the podcast Baseball by the Book back in 2016. And I've had more than 300 episodes of the podcast. And one of the things that's interesting is I will frequently ask my authors, my guests, about their favorite books or kind of what inspired them. And it's just amazing how many times the glory of their times comes up. It seems to be the favorite baseball book of a lot of baseball authors. A lot of people who do this. That's what first got them interested in it in a lot of cases. In some cases, it inspired them directly to do other kinds of oral histories. In some cases, it was just more of a generic inspiration about baseball history. But yeah, it's the glory of their times. Like I got it right here. It was written by Lawrence Ritter, Larry Ritter, and it first came out in 1966. And for people who don't know, it's an oral history where he talked to initially 22 players. There was a later edition with 26, but 22 former players, mostly from the dead ball era. And he basically he drove around the country in the early 1960s tracking these guys down. And this was the pre-internet era, right?
Yes.
So finding them was an adventure in itself. He and his wife did a lot of this, and he would go in and he would meet with them and put his tape recorder, and it was one of those big reel-to-reel tape recorders because again, the technology was very different back then.
We know what that's
and he would
like,
yeah, exactly. So he couldn't just get his laptop and put a mic out like I can do. He had to do, use these big reel-to-reel things that I'm barely old enough to remember, and a lot of your listeners probably don't remember at all. But so yeah, he did these tapes of these players, and then he transformed that into a book. And the book was in 22 chapters, a chapter per player, and it's not a back and forth kind of oral history. It's just every chapter is just devoted to that player, and it's these guys reminiscing about their time in the major leagues, which again is a lot of it is in the early part of the 20th century. So they talk about their memories of Ty Cobb and of Babe Ruth, and they talk about playing in the 1909 World Series or the 1908 World Series, and it's just really amazing stuff to read. It's very well written. He did a great job of taking these raw recordings and shaping them into something really compelling and interesting. And as you can imagine, I have a lot of people who ask me about, well, what baseball book should I read? I haven't read many. What? And this is always the first one I recommend. I think this is, if you want to get into baseball history and baseball books, start with this one because you can read the whole thing in 3 or 4 hours, and you're not going to want to put it down. And it just paints this amazingly evocative image of baseball in the early days, in the 20th century. And I just think it's an amazing book.
So it's basic covers 1900 to 1920, basically, correct?
Yeah, I think it goes in. Some of the players played in. I think even in the second edition, he's got some guys who even played into the early 40s.
Okay.
And there's some guys who played in the 30s, but a lot of it, is about like the pre Ruth era, pre Lively Ball era. So a lot of it, especially in the early chapters, it does concentrate on that. The 1900s, 1910s, that kind of thing.
And are the players that these 22, are they well-known players that we would hear about? Is it a mix? Some yes, some no?
Yeah, it's absolutely a mix. You've got guys like some of the later players like Lefty O'Doul and Goose Goslin. There's some guys who played well into the 30s. He's got Sam Crawford was a Hall of Famer. He's got Rube Marquard and Stan Kovaleski, who are both elected to the Hall of Fame after they were in the book. Harry Hooper's another Hall of Famer. Smokey Joe Wood was a very good player. But then there's others kind of fairly obscure guys. Tommy Leach, Jimmy Austin, Hans Lobert, not exactly household names. So yeah, it's a mix of the of some Hall of Fame type players, and as well as some others who are just sort of more everyday kind of players.
So the book, basically from their perspective, is it about their daily life and what it was like playing baseball when they played? Yeah, basically.
In a lot of chapters, it starts out, they talk about how they got discovered. I was playing baseball in some semi-pro league when I was 19, and a scout came up and saw me, and he signed me, and 3 weeks later I was playing with the Washington Senators. That's what's really fun about it, is there's a lot of stories like that, because as you can imagine, the scouting and development system back then was not what it is now. So it really was like these guys would be discovered on a sandlot somewhere playing in an industrial league or some sort of low minor league that was unaffiliated, and a couple weeks later they're in the major leagues, and it's just these great stories. So yeah, and then they talk about their experiences playing in the World Series. Again, they'll talk about their experiences with Ty Cobb. I think he asked them a lot about the great players of their era. Bill Wamgas had a famous World Series incident. He talks about that. Fred Merkel's boner. There's people who are involved in that game. They talk about that. So, and stuff, it's just the everyday. What was it like to travel back then? What was, how much did you get paid? Who washed your uniforms? There's a lot of that kind of stuff as well.
A lot of behind the scenes stuff that is always fun, but we hear a lot about that in the current day. But
Right.
For me, as someone who, and I've taught this to a lot of folks in terms of history, I need to be able to see or read that, and that the understand that this see it, whether it's
Yeah.
a baseball that was played back then, or or a bat that was used by a player. It's hard for me to visualize it in my brain. But when I am able to read this kind of stuff, like you said,
Yeah.
cool little tidbits of history, not necessarily about a specific game, right? Perhaps, but about their lives, it makes it real. Makes
Yeah,
what it was
exactly.
like what it was like to live back in the time, back in in those times, which we don't know about.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons this book was so successful over the years and why it's been so influential. Because I actually did a bonus episode when I was doing a Patreon about this episode, and I talked to some people about it. Because obviously Larry Ritter is long since passed, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him for the podcast, but I did talk about the book. And one of the things that we were all talking about was the fact that this book was written in 1966. So it's basically, it's basically 50 years or so after the stuff that's happening, 50 to 60 years. So it'll be like right now writing about the early 70s, maybe the late 60s. But because this era took place before color photography, before film, before movies, before TV, the era seems much more distant, I think, than the 70s seems to us. And I think that's why it was so evocative for people. You could actually kind of read these tales of what it was like to be on a baseball diamond in 1910, and it suddenly comes alive for you in a way that it just doesn't otherwise, because we didn't have the technology back then to kind of really, we understand what baseball looked like in 1970 because we have color films of it. We don't really in 1910, and that's why I think the book is so interesting, because it kind of paints that picture in a way that you have to get it in your head because you can't actually see it.
Right? Are there photos in the book too?
Yeah, I believe there are some.
Okay.
Yeah, there are photos throughout, including some famous Charles Conlon photos and that sort of thing. But yeah, there are definitely photos.
Because again, that's always just fun to see. As a baseball fan, both of us, they just even looking at the equipment, right? What the gloves
absolutely.
they used, and
look at the uniforms are so, like these big wool heavy things,
yes.
and they're playing all day games. You just imagine how many pounds they sweated out in a typical game.
and yet they did it. It's similar to, I talked to Bob Kendrick and a lot of folks about the Negro Leagues and what they went through. Obviously, more socially deplorable, put it that way, right? What they went through, but they also wore those uniforms, and they also had the same situations. So not only were they wearing those heavy uniforms, but they were dealing with social issues that were really hard for them to understand.
Yeah, dealing with level of
that stuff,
not being able to get into hotels, not being able to get into restaurants, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are some very good oral histories of the Negro Leagues as well. This one obviously doesn't get into that because of the era it's looking at. So, but yeah, there are a lot of good ones out there about the Negro Leagues as well.
All right, so let's talk about the baseball's great experiment about Jackie. Now, we as baseball fans and somewhat historical know the basic story of Jackie, right? Having watched the movie 42, the great job that I forget the actor's name. He did.
Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman. That one scene where he's getting beat on verbally, and he goes back down to the clubhouse in the walkway and just slams the bat. And Branch Rickey comes up and said, you're the reason, you're the person I picked because you could get through this. That's the basics of what we know about Jackie Robinson. But what about this great experiment? Tell us a little bit about this book.
What I love about this book, and this is, other than The Glory of the Times, this may be my favorite baseball book ever. And again, it's the one I also recommend to people if they're interested in baseball history, to read this one, because it talks about such a key part of baseball history, which is the integration of the game in 1947. But it is about Jackie Robinson, but it goes well beyond Jackie Robinson to give you the context of Jackie Robinson signing with the Dodgers. In other words, it doesn't just start with 1945, Jackie Robinson signs. It gives you the background of why the major leagues were segregated in the first place in the 19th century. It goes into the various efforts that happened in the black press among politicians in some big cities in the Northeast, among the Daily Worker, the communist newspaper. All these places were pushing for the integration of baseball well before 1945, when Jackie Robinson finally signed. And it gives you all that context of this is building up. This is something you understand that it was inevitable that something was going to happen. It didn't have to be Jackie Robinson. It didn't have to happen exactly the way it did, but everything was building towards this point. And so the book takes you to that point, and then it tells you the Jackie Robinson story. But then it even goes beyond that to talk about other black players who played in the major leagues in 1947, some of whom you've never heard of. In 1948, there's some guys like Larry Doby and Roy Campanella and Don Newcomb who came up, who became successful major league players. Some of these guys didn't succeed, and they only had a short time in the major leagues. And then it goes beyond that even and talks about the integration of the minor leagues throughout the 50s and 60s. And the story doesn't really get completed until the minor leagues are fully integrated, because some of the Southern leagues, for instance, were hesitant to allow black players in. Teams were sending them to places that weren't in the South. Some sent them to places that were in the South, and they faced a level of racism that was much harder. I don't want to quantify how hard it was, but it was different than being in the major leagues, because you're in these small towns. You didn't have the protection of the major league team, and you might be the only black player on the team. There's famous stories about Dick Allen playing in Little Rock, Arkansas, for instance, and things like that. So what this book does so effectively to me is it gives you the entire context of the story. Jackie Robinson's at the center of it, but you learn what led us to Jackie and what came after Jackie. And it's just really a fascinating and extraordinarily well-researched book.
Yeah. And there's so much out there, about Jackie, obviously. So the big question is, an experiment. Did it work?
Well, yeah, it did work, because Jackie Robinson was a great player. and obviously, and then eventually Roy Campanella was a great player. Don Newcomb, Larry Doby, these guys succeeded as well. But yeah, the reason it was considered an experiment is because he took this approach, and the author, Jules Teigel, actually gets into this a bit, that the way he went about it, to have it all focused on one player, Teigel thinks that maybe wasn't the best way to do it. He said, you can't argue with the results because it worked. But suppose Jackie Robinson hadn't been as good as he was. Suppose he had, the pressure got to him in a way that it didn't in reality, and he had failed. He couldn't make, he was hitting 170 at the All-Star break. He couldn't keep a regular job. What would have happened? This would have possibly delayed the integration of baseball for, several more years. I mean, it's not, I don't think it would have delayed it forever, certainly, but it could have delayed it for 5 more years, for instance. And I think there were some owners who even were hoping for that, owners who didn't want to have to deal with this because of their own racism, because of their own perceptions of their fans' racism, that sort of thing. They were rooting for it to fail so that they could say, look, we tried it, it didn't work. And that's why I think it's called an experiment. And it was a wildly successful experiment because of Jackie Robinson, because he was a great player who was able to stand up to this enormous pressure on the field and off, and to be the person we celebrate now. But had he not been as good a player, had Branch Rickey's talent evaluation not been as good as it was, it could have certainly delayed the process.
And then on the other side of the coin, I want to bring this up too. I think it's important that, once we know how important the Negro Leagues were to the Black community all over, like wherever they played, the other side of that coin is once the integration started, Negro Leagues just all of a sudden got decimated. Yeah,
and it was fairly rapid. Like the Negro Leagues, some teams, played on into the late 50s and even early 60s, but they were they were a remnant of themselves, right? A shallow remnant of themselves. It wasn't. They pretty quickly within, by 1948, 1949, 1950, certainly the Negro Leagues, like you said, were decimated because all the great players were signing. Either minor, they were being signed to the minor leagues, or they were coming, like Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Ernie Banks. These guys played briefly in the Negro Leagues and then were signed by major league teams and were successful right away. the black press stopped paying attention to the Negro Leagues once Jackie Robinson integrated them. By 1948, 1949, these newspapers, these great black newspapers like the Pittsburgh, I can't think of the name of it, but there's a great paper in Pittsburgh, the Chicago Defender, that had been talking about this stuff all along and had been covering the Negro Leagues. They at that point, they just started covering Jackie Robinson and Roy Campanella and Larry Doby and the guys who had integrated the major leagues, and they pretty much stopped talking about the Negro League. So interest level just, nosedived, and they were never going to succeed once the black players could go to the organized major leagues.
Yeah, it is. It's such an interesting story on both sides of the coin there, isn't it? It's just, American history, what it did. Yeah. You wonder, like you said, what happens if Jackie wasn't successful. That would have been interesting, but it was great.
Right.
And, it's just a phenomenal piece of American history, baseball, part of that.
It really is.
In the culture. So
Yeah,
Justin, before I let you go, the name of the show is The Burn with Mitch. I have to ask you, in the world of whether it's baseball or whatever, the burn is what bugs you. What's your burn?
Oh, I could go on and on about that.
We all can. I'm sure.
I mean, I'm a Baltimore Orioles fan, so I got a lot of things that I'm burning about these days.
Ooh, yikes!
I'll just leave it to baseball though, and just say, and I'm sure I'm not unique in this. I am extremely not happy, disappointed with the leadership of Major League Baseball and in the person of Rob Manfred and the owners, because I feel like these are not people who have the long-term interests of the game in mind when they make decisions. I'll put you that way. Yeah. And I feel like they do not understand the love of baseball from the perspective of hardcore fans like myself, like you. And I get it. You gotta cater to the casual fan as well. You can't rely just on the hardcore, but there's just so many little things they do that show a total lack of understanding of what makes baseball special, I think. And that to me is extremely aggravating.
It's unfathomable for me to hear someone like yourself and hear a lot of folks, and we'll talk to my next guests about it too, that they don't really care. It's more of a business, and the fans run it, but yet, we talked about all about this, about the lockout. They're making every team is worth billions of dollars now, and the reasons that we are upset is because we see as fans that they don't really care about us, and it's a shame. It's a shame. They do to a degree. I love the fact that Manfred sent every player a set of Bose headphones. Really?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Send them to me. I could use them.
Give it to the fans. Hey, do a lottery. First, million fans get a Bose. Thanks, Rob. Maybe I'll be a fan more of you more. Nah, I won't. That's not going to happen. But it's upsetting. Yeah. Well, listen, Justin, thanks so much. Listen, folks, you can find Justin Baseball by the Book at Baseball Book Pod. Hundreds of books that Justin can talk about. And I know you put out a request, and I answered, and I thank you so much for answering to come on the show, because I love baseball books.
Yeah, absolutely. And people can find it anywhere any podcast app. It's available. Baseball by the Book. More than 300 author interviews.
Awesome. Justin, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anytime.
All right. That's awesome. Have a good night. Thanks. All right. Thank you to oh my gosh, look who's there. Look who just showed up on my screen. That's Bill.
Hello.
Oh, wait, is there somebody else coming on? Another Bill. Oh my gosh. Who am I missing? Oh wait.
The Bills are coming too.
Here come the Bills. Oh my gosh. Wait a minute. Who do I have here? I got Bill.
Rory's here. Yeah.
Rory? Where's Rory? Is this Rory, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Rory. Man, you guys look alike. You and Bill look alike a little bit. Put some glasses on and you look alike. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good afternoon. Glad to have you have us on.
I am so glad and honored because, again, you guys, I know, Bill, you were on early Perch, you were hearing me talk about loving baseball books.
Mhm.
And let me just introduce Bill and it's Perch, right?
Correct.
Okay. Baseball historian, researcher with Sabre Chicago, and Sabre Central Illinois, and that includes Peoria, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
All
actually,
right.
Peoria was a lot of the inspiration behind that. There was a Chicago chapter, there was a St. Louis chapter, and my company has an office in Peoria. And I'm like, if there's a Sabre meeting, where do they go? They need a Central Illinois chapter.
There you go. My wife and her family are from Peoria, and we go back there every year, so I know it well. Very,
Fantastic.
very, very cool.
I'm hoping to catch the Chiefs game soon. So.
Oh, I went last year for the first time. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Perfect.
Bill Nolan, thank you for coming on. Bill, I see your picture on Facebook, right, as an ad, and I'm sometimes I'm afraid to just request because you don't know me who is requesting to friend you, but I know I've seen a lot of work that you've done, so I'm going to do that after the show.
Well, I think Facebook has a limit of 5,000 friends, so you got to be picky.
I will.
Do we have time for Rounder Records discussion?
I'm picking you, buddy. And Rory. So Bill was an editor of this book, and I'll get to the book in a second so people can hear it. And Rory, you were a contributor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So we're going to talk about this new book. That's a digital Sabre book, right? Digital book.
Correct. It's part of the Sabre Digital Library.
Dominicans.
It's not only digital.
Oh, it's the whole baby. There you go.
Let's see. More than 400 pages.
Oh yeah. I'm going to be fully retired soon. I got time.
In English.
Dominicans in baseball.
Spanish.
Dominicans in Major League Baseball, right?
Yep.
Okay, guys. What was the impetus behind this book?
Well, we've been doing a lot of books. We started the so-called Sabre Digital Library in December 2011. Sabre has always published books, but more sporadically. We've stepped it up in the last 10 years, and we're doing on the average about 8 books a year now, all of which are completely free to all Sabre members. It's a tremendous benefit of being a Sabre member. You get 8 books for free just as a start.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get hundreds of new biographies of ball players coming out. Rory heads up the bio project with a colleague. We have games project, all kinds of material coming out through Sabre. Why this book? It just seemed to be time. We had done one on Cubans in baseball. We'd done one on Puerto Ricans in baseball. And we have a Venezuelans book coming along down the pike.
We did the Puerto Ricans book too, Bill.
Pardon?
We did the Puerto Ricans book as well.
Yes.
And the Cubans book.
Right.
So there's a heavy emphasis on Latin America.
Yeah.
Right.
As is only right and proper.
So Rory,
and some Negro Leagues books. We do about one a year on the history of the Negro Leagues. The next one will be out by the beginning of June on the 1920 Chicago American Giants, the first champions of the Negro Leagues.
Very cool.
First World Series.
So, Bill, are you specifically just an editor, and Rory, or Bill Nolan, and Rory, are you the researcher, or Bill? Do you research also?
Well,
Bill has written more biographies for the Bio Project than anybody.
Okay.
In large part, thanks to his drive to cover all the Red Sox.
This book has 54 biographies of Dominican ball players.
Okay.
There were 41 different members of Sabre who contributed to the book one way or another. Rory happened to have written 3 of the biographies. I wrote 2 of them. We try to limit it. And we have a lot of people that want to write these. We try to make sure that nobody grabs them all up. So the 2 or 3 is we cap it at that so more people can participate.
And such a big influx from when was the first Dominican brought into the major leagues? When did they start?
When did the first Dominicans come in? I don't know. I have to look at the book here and try to figure that out.
Early 50s.
Yeah.
Early
into the majors, yeah.
Okay. And we're still it's just a plethora of not just, again, Latin players, but we're talking specifically here about this group, these Dominicans, hugely popular. Baseball is hugely popular there. I was reading a statistic, what was it? What was the number 300? Rory, remember?
Well, it's up to it's over 800 now, I believe.
800 now, but 300 at some point. I forget what that number is.
Because it wasn't that common for a while. Even into the early 70s, there were only a few dozen or so. But then it just took off in the 80s, 90s, and beyond.
Tell me why. Why do you think?
Well, talent and less expensive talent, you might also add.
It's
Okay.
a great opportunity for people who might not have as many opportunities. I have some relatives that just were down there about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about soccer because one of their kids was at a soccer game, and he said, you can't see kids playing soccer in the Dominican Republic. All you see is them playing baseball. The complete opposite of the way it is in the United States these days.
Yep, absolutely. I watch kids over across the street at the Y playing soccer, and I'm like, let's play baseball. Come on, let's get some t-ball. Let's get some stuff going.
Well,
Right?
and one of the interesting points along those lines was the in the very beginning of the book, a lot of the photos, Bill, were from your personal collection, your visits there.
Yeah, I have been there a couple times. I went down to see the Red Sox played spring training games down there against the Astros back in the year 2000. That's when I took most of those photos. But it's I mean, kids in the Dominican Republic have a chance to make the major leagues, and they work at it. They've got academies down there to help them train. Even the Japanese leagues have academies there.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
The Red Sox for a while shared their academy with the Hiroshima Carp.
Interesting. I didn't know that. This is why I love having you guys on, because there's a lot of you bring a lot of history and knowledge that the normal fan, unless they do the work that you guys do, which we pretty much most of us don't. That's why we have you doing this stuff. Learn about, again, more of the history, not just, again, American history and what Jackie Robinson but let's talk about now. And you guys said you got Cuban, you got Venezuelan, you got Puerto Rican, and now you have the Dominican. It's interesting that there are so many now, and isn't it interesting also? So a little off subject, but kind of guys. So Bob Kendrick from the Negro Leagues Museum, he did mention, and we all know it, the number of African American ball players in Major League Baseball has dwindled, to below that double-digit line. Yeah. What is the number of Dominicans right now? Do you know? Do you have that number?
Do you know, Rory?
Percentage-wise?
I remember running some checks on this for a couple of recent bios. But I think it's in the teens. I think the representation of Dominican ball players as a total percentage of major leaguers is in the teens.
That's my understanding. Someplace in the teens with the African Americans, maybe 7 or 8% at this point.
Yeah. So again, his concern, Bob, he mentioned this. I was watching, I guess it was Sunday Night Baseball he was on, and just getting baseball into those African American, those Black communities. And really needing to push that, like the Dominicans do. Again, pretty much, is baseball the national sport down there? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Oh, without doubt.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about. So Bill and Rory, you did some bios, you did some chapters. Tell us a little bit about some of these guys.
Do you mind if I start, Bill?
No, please.
If there's anyone that I'd like to single out, it's the biography of Manny Mota. And it was just the happiest, nicest experience you could imagine as a baseball researcher and fan. Manny Mota is just the humblest, nicest, most wonderful human being. He thanked me for writing about him, and for rather than the other way around, by being worshiping at his feet for having gotten an interview with Manny Mota.
Wow. And again, I watched Manny play, right? That's how old I am. And see, there are so many. I'm amazed at how many there are. Going back to Manny Mota, right? So what did you talk about with Manny? What was the main thing you wanted to get from Manny?
Well, it was really about his origins in the game and about how he got his start with the military aviation team in the Dominican Republic, and just checking a lot of facts. But at any rate, he made himself so available and just was willing and happy to answer anything that I wanted. And also, I was able to circle back to him maybe a year or two later for another one of the bios that was in the book, Horacio Martinez, the progenitor of all the great Dominican shortstops. And I knew that he had scouted Manny and various other Dominican players after his playing days were over. And so I wanted to ask Manny for a quote about the importance of Horacio Martinez. And he was actually on his lunch hour when I reached him again. But he took the time out, just being the kind of guy that Manny is. And he gave me a quote, and he said, "How is it?" And I just said, "It's perfect. Thank you."
That's great.
Well, and to jump in there, I'm just absolutely blown away by the level of research that the 41 volunteers put into this, just digging facts. And some people had passed away, so the level of information that's available, it can vary depending on who you're focused on. And because I didn't contribute to this one, but I participated with other book projects, as well as Rory can attest to the bio project. And it's interesting, if you get the chance to actually speak to somebody and get a little bit of their perspective into that story, because a lot of the projects I've worked on have been from a different era, so that story's kind of written, you need to discover it. So I was wondering if maybe Rory or Bill can speak a little bit about the actual vetting process and how these stories kind of go through the fact-checking stages.
Well, that's developed over time. It used to be just it's become more multi-layered and more rigorous, you might say. And it's to the benefit of the biographies. If you look at the stuff that I wrote and other people wrote back in the early 2000s, it wasn't as rigorous in terms of footnoting and sourcing, and in terms of just the editorial scrutiny. So it's for the benefit of the product overall, how it's developed over time.
Some of the bios that were written for this book were in fact written by other people maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and we always try to upgrade them to send them back through a new fact checker and add to the documentation. It's a great thing for young people who are starting out and maybe want to build a resume. I always urge them to take on writing something for SABR, because you could end up in a book, you can add it to your resume, and you've got people trying to help you out, other editors out there for fact checking, for copy editing, and so forth. It can be like a very supportive experience helping you produce something as a writer.
So let's
and local historical societies love to hear from SABR.
Yeah.
I can imagine
when you're calling them asking about somebody who might have lived in town or in the county, and their eyes light up and they go crazy doing their own research. And this is what I found for you. So,
and another part of it too is that you can make families very happy. Children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, they want to see their ancestors recognized. And they have family materials that they're willing to contribute. They have direct memories that they're willing to contribute, and it makes for a very happy experience.
Priceless information, I'm sure, from the family members. There's got to be awesome, and so hit you in the heart probably when you hear these family members be so gracious and provide you with so much gratitude that you're honoring their family member by writing about them. Right? That's got to be a thrill for you all.
It certainly can be. Of course, we try to present the person's story, their life as it was. In some cases, it's not always a happy story. In some cases, there's potential embarrassment there. But we're not out to try to be muckrakers. We're not out to try to upend things. But we also don't want to sugarcoat them. And so it can be, you have to be just tactful and thoughtful of others that try to tell the story as it was.
And these interviews, guys, do you, where you can, do them in person? And if again, whenever the book, whatever subject matter you're doing, it's got to be a hell of a task to Bill, for you, Nolan, get all this stuff put together. right? And get the editing done. How long does it take to get this thing done?
Well, typically a book might take 6 months to a year, closer to a year usually, but it's not like working round the clock or anything. Everybody's writing their own pieces, and then each specialized editor takes them on. I
Okay.
just enjoy the logistics of it. I just enjoy taking this piece here and moving it over there, and check it along the way and seeing something grow bit by bit. It's kind of fun. We don't always get to talk to the players. Some of them would prefer to remain anonymous. That's a challenge sometime with a living player. Especially these guys that these days are making millions of dollars, and they really don't put their phone number up on, telephone poles or anything like that. That can be very difficult to track down. I only ever had one guy got angry at me because he didn't think I made him look good enough, is essentially what it amounted to. And my response was, well, it wasn't me that won 2 games and lost 9. I didn't actually say that to him, but that was.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know.
But yeah, another one of the bios that was in this book.
But when you do it, it can be a treat.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, name, guys, one of the most famous Dominican player that we can talk about here.
Oh, where to begin?
One guy that I interviewed and wrote up for the book is going into the Hall of Fame in a few weeks, David Ortiz.
There you go.
He is pretty well known these days. He managed to get himself shot in the Dominican Republic not that long ago, but the story of that is a little difficult to figure out still.
And is David in this book?
Yes, yeah. The 2 I wrote were David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez.
Oh,
partly reflecting my Boston Red Sox bias.
Absolutely. Rounder Red Sox on Twitter. I saw that.
And was the cover photo, was that your shot?
I didn't take the photo. I was there that day, but it's a giant Dominican flag. I for those that can see, it's a giant Dominican flag out in the Green Monster at Fenway Park.
Very cool.
The flag is maybe 200 feet, 150 feet long, and 30 some feet tall.
And what was what guys? What's been the? I mean, I know. I guess Bill. You just mentioned you quote. You don't want to embarrass anybody. You want to make him. He said you didn't make him look good enough. I'm sure that's a rarity.
It's the only time that's ever happened to me. Yeah. And we try to. I always try, and I encourage other authors to when they've written something. Partly as a way of getting the interview in the first place is tell them, if you're willing to talk to me for 10, 15 minutes, and then you can maybe stretch it out if you need to, I'll be happy to send you the biography afterwards so you can check it and make sure everything's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And only this one person is the only person. He didn't really try to censor it. He didn't succeed anyhow, but he just wished that he'd come out a little better.
Yeah. Well, one of the examples that I had is it wasn't for the bio project because he spent his entire career, which was very, very briefly in the minor leagues and more in the semi-pro ranks. And he's a gentleman who's 90 some years old in suburban Milwaukee. And I had worked with his daughter a number of years ago, and she's like, "You'd love to talk to my dad about baseball. He doesn't talk to the family about it." And I reached out to him, and he was drafted by the White Sox and made it very, very entry level. And he was like, he's like, "You don't really want to talk to me. I don't have an interesting story." He's like, "I never really went anywhere." But the semi-pro ranks, the company teams in suburban Milwaukee were fantastic. And he opened up about his military experience and playing ball for the Army back in the day. And he just had all of these stories. And he actually stopped at one point and he said, "That is kind of interesting, isn't it?" And I'm like, that's exactly why we want to document this. Yeah. And there's sort of the perception that all of these bios are the Hall of Famers or the people that you just know of. And sometimes I find it a little more interesting to find, to find those people that flew under the radar or just made it a little bit because there's another story to their life. And that's what's fascinating to unlock. And, so far, again, my specialty's kind of been in the dead ball era. So, it's generations after generations of family. So the people that I've talked to a lot of times said, "I didn't really know that my uncle played ball until after he had passed away. And it's just interesting to hear those stories come out from families. So it's been a really rewarding part of being associated with SABR.
And you find a guy that maybe played 3 months in the major leagues, got into 12 games as a pinch hitter or something like that. And as you say, sometimes they don't think they have much to offer. And, it's a pretty easy line to come back with and say, there are tens of millions of boys who grew up in America and other countries who would have loved to have 1 minute in the major leagues.
Mm-hmm.
You made it.
I'm a Civil War buff too, and one of the lines that I always like to come back to, I think it was the historian Bruce Catton who said that the story of the Army is not told by the generals; it's told by the foot soldiers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bill P. The life stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. It's life, and if you love, we have baseball as a background, but like you said, whether they played, Bill, 12 at bats or 12 games or whatever it is, they don't realize it, that there are people interested, like Bill said, the millions of people who would love to have been in their shoes. Not that they're jealous, but just to hear what that experience was like. It gets you excited. It gets your hairs, the back of your neck going up, because you're hearing real stories, and whoever because I'm sure they could see every at bat or every game, what they did and how they played. And again, baseball has us by the neck, right? We all love this game, and any little story, any little tidbit of information, and you guys are to be commended for what you all do with SABR and providing all of this information for the general fan to be able to take in and just enjoy learning about. That's what baseball fans love. They love to learn. Most of us love to learn. And I'll tell you guys, initially when I learned about the Negro Leagues, this was like even just 4 or 5 years ago. I had heard the name Satchel Paige, right? I heard, and pretty much that's the only one of the Negro Leagues, not knowing that Willie and Hank played in the Negro Leagues, right? So learning about that it really happened. And when I went to the museum in Kansas City and seeing the articles of incorporation of the Negro League signed by Rube Foster, oh man, it just opened my eyes up. And then the understanding that there are still guys, just a few of them left, that can still talk about it. And and that's probably what you all love doing, is to be able to hear those stories. And we've talked about, Sam Allen is one of them, and he's just the greatest, nicest guy. And he's just so gracious about talking about what he went through. It's just phenomenal. So you are all writers. I admire writers because they can put stuff on paper in a succinct way, and especially about baseball. It's just amazing to me how fun it is to read and appreciate what you all do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's remarkable too, just sometimes the rabbit hole that you go down when you start to research these individuals, and you find the box scores, you see all of that information, but then when you start to get quotes and you start to get, especially like a small town paper where they're really trying to hype up their local guy, and if you get a chance to find information where they shared a story, and again, what we were talking about earlier, sometimes the person who just had that little brush with success, maybe their career, their stats didn't really turn out to be anything important, but they shared the field with some of the legends of the game. Yeah. And that's remarkable. I'm working on a bio right now. He's the last member from the 1908 Cubs to not have a bio as part of the bio project. And, in the grand scheme of things, he's kind of a forgotten player, mm-hmm. but he was on 2 pennant winning teams, never played in the World Series. He just, part of his job was helping warm up pitchers, and he was doing this one comparison of Christy Mathewson and how he shaped up against the Cubs, and he actually said, "Well, I think a lot of the Cubs players were probably better pitchers than Christy Mathewson." And you're like, "Did he actually say that?" And it's like small town Illinois, where that story probably never went anywhere else. But it's great to find those little nuggets along the way.
Yeah.
Who's that now, Bill?
What's that?
Which guy is this you're talking about?
Doc Marshall.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's again the little tidbits of information that they are, as that one card commercial says, priceless, just priceless. And you guys are living. You're doing this because you love it. And,
Exactly.
And obviously you wouldn't do it, and you're living that life, and you're going to keep going, right? You're going to keep going. What's next? What's another project coming up? Can we tell?
Well, let's see. There's two. We talked about Cuba and Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. We've got 2 books based in Canada that will be coming out this year.
Oh, cool. Okay.
One general survey of Canadian baseball, and then a book on the 1992 Toronto Blue Jays, which were the first non-U.S. team to win a World Series. This is their 30th anniversary year. So that book will be out by August when they have a celebration planned in Toronto.
And you know what?
When's the Venezuelans one scheduled for, Bill?
Sometime next year. That is slow developing, but with the Dominican book this year, we'll have another one next year.
And you know what just hit me, guys? This is never ending. This is never ending.
It doesn't have to end.
Always going to be a story to tell. I need to run up. Come on. I mean, it's just, that's why, again, you're so dedicated, you guys, to be able to do this, and you love what you're doing, and you can continue to enlighten us as the fans of baseball to want to read more about these different players and teams and the history of this game, which is just crazy.
We've been really fortunate for that book. Dave Winfield has written a foreword for the book.
Nice.
And Buck Martinez has written an introduction. So
terrific. Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, never, Bill, you're smiling because you can feel how I'm feeling, right? You can see how I'm feeling. I'm loving this. This is just awesome stuff.
And that's what's great, because I read a quote somewhere specifically about the Bio Project, but it relates to all of the books and all the games, is that just the whole idea is it's a never-ending project.
Never.
You're always going to have the next wave of players come through. There's always going to be that next great team that has an interesting story. You can always go back and have an anniversary of a team and sort of resurrect an old book and maybe update it with some new perspectives. So it's one of those where it's always going to be there, and we're always going to be chasing that end, and you'll never get there. So
that's exactly right. There's no end. This is great, which is great. All right, guys, the name of the show, Bill, you probably heard it early when you came on, The Burn with Mitch. Yeah. So, it's part of the negative part of the show. I hate to do this, but, I neglected to do this all last year. I did it once in a while, but it's what the burn is, what bothers you. Is anything bothering you right now in sports or baseball? Because I'm writing it all down. And at some point, like 6 months in about 3 months, I'm going to publish them all, put them out there.
Well, I'd second what Justin said. It's really, I don't know what it's like to have a family of 4 and be making, $50,000-$60,000 a year if you're lucky. You can hardly afford to go to a game. Mm-hmm. And if everything just came down, salaries for everybody, ticket prices, we'd all be happier, I think. Except maybe some people at the top.
Right.
Yeah, I agree on all of that. I mean, baseball is the greatest game. I grew up loving it. There was nothing. Second place on my list is so far down, and I really want the next generation to embrace it and love it not the same way that I did, but have that same sense of appreciation. Mm-hmm. But my big thing is I have a World Series picture for the Cubs over there. I want another one. Yeah, I'm a little jealous of these Red Sox fans that ended up getting a handful of them in pretty short time frame. So I want to catch up.
So Cubs player development, management, that kind of thing.
Yeah. We don't have very many players right now.
I know they're all gone, kind of like Oakland. Rory, what do you got?
Well, I guess it would be to see the ball put in play more. Just too many walks, too many strikeouts, too much dead action.
Okay, good. Terrific. If you guys watched the 8th inning of the Phillies game last night, there was a lot of action. It was awesome. The first 7 innings, I was cursing. I'm by myself. Would you hit the damn ball? What are you striking out so much? I get crazed. My wife is like, go in the other room, please. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But that's me. That's my passion. Is my baseball team, and we all have our teams, and we root the way we root, and it's just so much fun to be able to do that and have that kind of interest in this particular game, good or bad. We love it, and you guys prove that by doing what you do with SABR and your research. It's very much appreciated by many baseball fans. So
And that's why everybody should be a SABR member, no matter how you love the game.
Well,
there are other people SABR that love it the same way.
Listen. I've looked. How many times have I looked at the SABR membership? I mean, how can I not do it? But I got to do it. I got to do it and get those books, Bill.
Free digital books for members.
I know. Are they? Here's a specific question. Are they would they be downloadable on my Kindle and stuff?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
in several different formats.
Terrific. Okay. All right. Twist
I
my
think
arm.
we
Go
got
ahead.
four different ways that you can download the digital books.
All right. Terrific. Guys, it's been absolutely an honor and a pleasure to have you on. I so much appreciate what you do as writers and researchers. I could never do that. And that's why I appreciate it so much. Continue to do the work that you're doing, and I'm there for it.
Well, we certainly welcome you're asking the kind of questions. I mean, podcasters, radio hosts, television hosts, we appreciate the attention that can help come to some of this work that people are doing.
Yeah, and I'm this goes out. It'll be replayed out, and I'll retweet it and stuff to get more people interested. So it's just awesome. So thank you all for coming on, taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having us.
How do we respond to the messages that came in? I got a couple of messages.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta find
from somebody whose handle is OddSox1919.
And what did they say?
Well, it was just some nice words.
You've done some nice SABR bios.
There you go. Let me look at the chat. Odd Socks. Yeah, Roy, you've done some nice. There it is. Of course, here I am, the host, not looking at the chat. So it's Odd Socks really has been watching. Born in Chicago, Augustana Hospital. Rory, you've done some nice stuff. Sam Hairston comes to mind at some point, he said. Louis Tiant, Willard Brown. Support local sports teams, high school, T-ball, minor leagues. That's what he said. So, Odd Socks, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, and Bill, Bill Nolan, I'm going to friend you on Facebook.
I'll watch for it.
Thank you.
Thank
Rory,
you.
are you on Facebook?
Pardon?
What's that?
Rory, are you on Facebook?
Yes.
I'll find you.
And there's a SABR Bio Project page on Facebook as well.
Good. Oh, that's right. Yes. All right, Bill P. Thank you for getting all this organized.
Absolutely. Love to.
Appreciate it, guys.
Great.
Have a good evening.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Take care. You're welcome.
Bye.
All right. Well, that's it for tonight on the Burn with Mitch. So the next show I have is not for a few weeks, and we will be talking Phillies. I've got one guest lined up. It's going to be all Phillies and baseball. So May 3rd is when I'll be coming up next. I got 2 baseball games that I'm coaching my middle school team on Tuesday nights. I won't be able to make a show. So we'll be tweeting out and putting it on Facebook. May 3rd. Jeez, that's only in 2 weeks. Are you kidding me? I'll be back with the Burn with Mitch on 12 Ounce Sports. Thank you to Bob Cook and Dave Marciano. And thank you to Bill Nolan and Rory and Bill Perch for coming on. And Justin McGuire. You guys were all great. Appreciate what you do. Thanks so much. This is Mitch Bernstein from the Burn with Mitch on 12 on Sports Network, bidding you a fond farewell. We'll see you in 2 weeks. May the 3rd, Phillies Talk. Everybody take care. See you then.